Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's 16th Byte of Learning. Okay, so today we'll just go through a few AI prompts specifically tailored for teaching classes. I think this is in follow-up to the recent Coffee in One Gulp webinars that we've been having, where we've been discussing AI at the ethical level, at the education level. So today will be a more practical session. We'll interact with these prompts, and then we'll see what we can do with them. So just two quick thoughts, and then we just get into the meat of it. So if you have your computer, you could join and try. So why should we learn prompting techniques? Typically, when you want to get a result from your chatbot, whether you're using Gemini or ChatGPT or nowadays Llama, which is free and open source, how you write the prompt or the instruction to ChatGPT directly impacts the quality of the output. I remember when we did the Coffee in One Gulp on Monday, Ian Wairua was able to walk us through how ChatGPT has a cultural bias. And sometimes the way you structure your prompt can be one way to mitigate that bias. In the same way that when you tell someone how to do something, breaking a complex task into step-by-step instructions is important. Similarly, when you're doing it with AI, in order to get a consistent result, you want to break your task down into step-by-step, so that you're not surprised by the output that you're getting. Two more things to keep in mind. Although typically the output of generative AI tools is right, AI tools are usually meant to generate content, not facts. They are just software. So, and although they can perform extremely complex tasks and they can do some deep level reasoning, their output is not guaranteed to be error free. And I'll demo something here later so that you can see this point. So you need to carefully check the output for errors. So the skill of refining prompts or prompt engineering is important because these tools are just software trained to identify and respond to patterns in human language. And the examples we'll use in this webinar will range in different subjects, but a key thing to note is these concepts that we look through this webinar can be applied to almost any subject, not just the couple of subjects we'll go through. So let me just share my screen. There we are. So let's see how you can use AI for lesson planning. For this webinar, we'll just use ChatGPT, not for any other reason other than it's the most widely used software, AI software, more than even Llama or Gemini. It has the mind share because it came first, but these prompts just work typically. Whichever software you use. That's why it's called prompt engineering, because they're just standard. So I want to use AI to generate a lesson plan and to just brainstorm. So I tell it, first, create a lesson plan for my first year college class studying property law. So right off the bat, I've given it an instruction and I've given it my audience. And then I gave it an objective. My objective is to have the class engaged with students taking much of the initiative. My role will be moderation. And some of the things at our disposal are writing material, a whiteboard, sticky notes, smartphones, a projector, and laptops. So I've constrained its environments to what I have readily available with me. And it goes straight ahead to give me a lesson plan based on this instruction. So it's step by step. You give it the instruction, you give it the audience, and why you're giving it this instruction, and the material you have at your disposal. And it gives me the first lesson plan. It gives me warm-up activity for 10 minutes, a warm-up discussion. Then it moves to a group activity for property scenarios, tells me to divide the class into groups of 3 to 4. And this is the work that it asks me to assign each group. It tells me in the group discussion, the students can use laptops to research certain things. And then each group should present their case to the class for 5 minutes, highlighting key legal points. So it gives me that as taking 30 minutes of my class. And then it gives me something else like a whiteboard debate for 15 minutes. And the question it tells me to ask my class is, should intellectual property be the same, have the same protection as physical property? And it asks me to split the class in half, with one side arguing for and the other against. And then the students come to the whiteboard to write their points and counterpoints, and it gives me a 5-minute summary. It also gives me a second lesson plan about starting with a quiz, and then it moves to the case study analysis, which it gives me to do for 25 minutes. And finally, it gives me something like a mock property auction and a wrap-up reflection for 5 minutes. So I already can see it's given me 2 lesson plans that are feasible. It even gives me a third one, which will probably not go through. But not satisfied, I want to refine the prompt further. And I tell it, I like lesson plan 2 better. So let's extend it to a 2-hour session with 15 minutes break in between. I want it to provide a more detailed lesson plan that involves the students additionally grading each other's group submissions based on a rubric. Actually, this idea, I got it from a discussion recently with Dr. Omingo, where she gets her students to grade each other sometimes, because if you have a lot of students, it sometimes is a little bit difficult to grade everyone. So I tell it, I want my students to grade each other's group submissions based on a rubric. And it tweaks my lesson plan for a 2-hour session. And it gives me a couple of things. It tells me let the students take a 5-question quiz on Kahoot or Mentimeter and let the results display. So it's sort of a warm-up or an icebreaker. And then it gives me another introduction activity taking 20 minutes. And it gives me a case study of Pearson versus Post. I don't know these people. I don't have a low background. And it tells me the key concepts that should be explored in this. And the discussion prompts are, who should own the property. So it gives me part 2 of a group study to take 45 minutes, again with the 2-hour timeline in mind. And it gives me a few more things that the groups will do: peer evaluation and rubric introduction. It gives me a rubric as I requested with points. So if I don't like this rubric, I can always edit it out a bit. And it gives me a presentation that will take 10 minutes. So it gives me a couple of things: peer grading, presentation, the final discussion, and wrap up. And it even goes ahead to give me an assignment, a short reflection of 1 to 2 pages where students explain this topic, for example. So finally, I tell it, okay, I like this assignment that you've given me, although I didn't even ask for it, but I would like my students to attempt it in their original groups, with each group member earning points based on their contribution. This idea, I got it from Dr. Stephen Masharia, who grades his group submission with each student scoring differently based on their own contribution. And it gives me a task that can be broken down into 4 participants. So I can grade each independently. So into either a researcher, writer, editor, and presenter. And in the grading criteria, it gives me some of the things that I can look out for. So I think using AI, you can quickly see how to plan your lesson to engage the students a lot more, so that you talk a little less and you let them do more of the work, depending on your preferences. The other thing you can use AI for is gamification of learning. Um, so I think there's some research that came out on gamification of learning actually aiding the learning process. And this is something that AI can do for you quite easily, to break down complex topics or abstract topics into everyday relatable scenarios. So I tell it, let's play a text-based game together. The game should be for a 20-year-old university student. Again, I'm giving it the audience and their situation. Sometimes when you tell it, create a game for my student, it might not give you the exact thing. So if you're preparing a lesson for someone who is 10 versus someone who is 20, the difficulty of the game will be adjusted. I give it the topic, fundamentals of managing a personal budget by prioritization. And then I tell it, let it be a role-playing game where I'm given fictional income and a list of expenses. And I must make decisions on how to allocate my budget each week, facing unexpected events that affect my finances. And then the thing that you want to do sometimes when you want to have a back and forth with any AI tool is give it the initiative. Tell it, ask me the first question, or give me the first task. Sometimes it can give you so many things, but if you want it to give you one thing at a time, always close out with this sort of tail. Ask me the first question. So it gives me a scenario. I'm 20, living on my own. You have a monthly allowance of $1,000 from a part-time job and family support. Wow, it's good money. And it tells me to prioritize my spending and ensure that I don't run out of money. It gives me fixed expenses, utilities, phone, internet, and groceries. And it tells me I only have $300 left for transport, social activities, clothing, savings, and unexpected events. So it tells me in week 1, you'll have a full 1,000, you pay the mandatory bills, and you're left with $300. So how much will you set aside for transport, for social activities, for what our friends call sherehe, or for savings? And it tells me split the $300 in any way you like. And so I immediately tell it I'll do $120 for transport, $150 for social, and save $30 at the end. Probably not a very prudent way to budget, but it tells me, okay, so this is how your budget looks like, and it uses up your entire $300 for the week. Let's move on. So you can see I am gamifying learning. In a very simple way, just by these simple instructions. It tells me, it gives me a twist to my game. Your bus pass is expiring. It costs $50 to renew it. And groceries will be a bit more expensive because of inflation. So how do you deal with this challenge when you're trying to budget? Will you adjust your spending? What will you do? So I tell it I'll reduce my party budget by $20 and top up $10 from savings. And then it tells me, okay, well done. And then it moves me on to week 3, and it gives me another twist, unexpected challenge. It tells me my laptop has crashed and it needs urgent repairs costing $100. You now have $300. But after covering the expenses, only $150 is left, plus $20 in savings. So how do you manage this? And you can see it really gets you thinking and gets the personal budgeting topic from just being theoretical into being something very practical. I tell it I'll take out a small loan and look for a cheaper repair shop and something like that. So in this way, you can easily gamify learning for your students. This is something that they can take in any context, and it gives you a summary and tells you whether you did your budget well or badly or something else. So you can use AI for educational games anytime to just spice up your lesson. The other way you can use it is to generate personalized examples. And this is sometimes when you're teaching an abstract topic and you want to relate it to an everyday activity or something that is happening in the environment today. Like as I was thinking, maybe I'm teaching principles of marketing to students, and maybe the thing that is happening right now is the Olympics or something else. So I ask it to give me some examples to better explain this hard or abstract concepts. I tell it, let's start with simple examples and get more complex as I tell you. These prompts, all of these prompts that are in these examples, I'll put them up on our landing page in case you want to use them. So it gives me the concepts in marketing, product, price, place, and promotion. And it tells me they cover, and it gives me actually the examples that I'm asking for, what athletes do to promote themselves, the marketing, parts and the tickets for pricing. It gives me examples that my students can relate to. And I tell it, okay, fine, this is helpful, but I need a bit more clarity on the product. Make these stories that you're giving me a bit more exciting, relevant, because Kenyans love Olympics. Create a story that explains the basic concepts around a product with 2 examples that highlight what a product is and what a product is not. So I'm really refining, I'm really pushing, and that's the trick with using AI to help with your lesson planning. You always want to not accept the first result or the second result that it gives you, but push it a bit more, and it will always give you something that is better for you. And it gives me actually an improved story that would help explain the concept of a product and what a product is and what it isn't. So it tells me, imagine it's the Olympic season and Kenya is buzzing with excitement. The streets are filled with children running and dreaming of becoming the next Eliud Kipchoge and Faith Kipyegon. All eyes are on the athletes as they prepare to make history once again. And then it tells me this is an example of what a product is. Technically, so it pivots a little bit more, and it tells me the moment arrives when Eliud Kipchoge is about to compete in the marathon. People from across the world are glued to their screens and are eager to watch his run, but he isn't just running for the gold medal, he's representing an entire brand. Kipchoge's product includes several aspects: his performance, what makes him win, what makes him run in under 2 hours, the brand partnerships that people who are sponsoring him like Nike, and his inspiration coming from a humble background and all these things. So it tells me as a product, this athlete is not just his physical ability, but the whole package, everything around him. So it can help me break down this abstract example into an everyday relatable scenario. And it tells me what a product is not. So this can help you explain it better. So it tells me the celebratory posters of the athletes put all over billboards are not the product. While these posters are exciting, they are not the product in the marketing sense. So an everyday example, something that is going on the TV that can explain a concept, abstract idea in a way that students can understand. AI, ChatGPT is very good at this. So you can use it to generate personalized examples when you feel a certain point is not quite landing and you want to bring an example that is closer to home. It's very useful for that. The third thing is simple hands-on activities based on your class. So I tell it I'm teaching ethical decision making in business, and I want my class to be hands-on, and I want to buy material from a bookshop at STC. And it tells me go buy these things: notebooks, handouts, poster papers, markers, and textbooks. And it tells me some activities that my students can do, an introduction and all this thing, group formation, case studies, similar to what we saw earlier in the lesson planning, the group discussion, whether they can create a poster for 15 minutes, presentation for 20 minutes, a class discussion for 15 minutes, etc. So I think, okay, but my class is in the afternoon, and people have just had lunch, and I don't want them to sleep in my lesson. So I tell ChatGPT, generate 2 fun games that can be used again in this college classroom in an afternoon lesson to motivate and actively engage students who are taking organization behavior. So it gives me sorry. Yeah, so it gives me a role play called the Office Shakeup. It gives me some materials that I need. So this is the flipped classroom where students are taking an active role in their class. It tells me, again, divide the class into groups, assign roles, etc. Each group must work together to do this and this and this. And it gives me the learning outcomes, so that everything it's telling me to do has several learning outcomes. It also gives me the Trust Tower challenge. It tells me to use Jenga blocks or Legos, or even blindfolds for half the class. So this looks pretty exciting. It tells me divide the class into pairs. One person will be the builder, the other person will be the instructor. So you can see how this would easily help you in your class, which is full of people who have just had lunch and they won't pay attention if it's notes they're reading. And it tells me to blindfold the builder in each pair. The instructor is responsible for guiding the builder to construct the tallest possible towers using blocks. The instructor can only use verbal instruction, no touching, and 10 minutes to build the tallest, most stable tower. After the time is up, the class votes on the tallest and most sturdy towers, switch roles, and repeat. So it gives me a rationale behind this activity. It's not just an activity for anything, but it tells me it builds the importance of trust in organization behavior. It reflects on communication skills and the role of teamwork. So these activities have a purpose and even learning outcomes. So it can help you generate activities for lessons which you want your class to be a bit more active and to take their initiative in learning. And the last thing we'll look at is on-demand practice. This one is just actually, this is one way that students can use AI positively in their classes. If they want to use AI to prepare for an exam or to understand certain topics. I remember recently I was talking to a lecturer at a different school, and she told me she has a legal background, but she's getting into psychology in her postgraduate degree. And the concepts in psychology are a bit difficult because she's coming from a legal background. And she told me one of the ways she does it is, using AI to ask her questions and to relate to that background. So I tell it in this instance to give me a quiz on prime numbers. I'm new to the concepts, so give me simple numbers, give me choices, and I'll pick the number that I think is a prime number. And then again, give me the first question, as we saw earlier in the education games. So it gives me choices, which is a prime number, and I answer 29B, and it tells me correct, and then it tells me which of the following is a prime number, and then I tell it A, and then it tells me that's incorrect. 21 is not a prime number because it can be divided by several numbers, etc, etc. So students can use AI tools to prepare for a CAT by asking the AI to generate questions, and then the students will try and answer. And if they can't answer, sometimes if you can't answer, you just tell it, okay, I don't know the answer, tell me the answer. And it's one way to prepare for assessment. So as we close out, let me just share one more thing just before we close, because I'm seeing we're running out of time. So we have a CTE prompts repository for those of you who might have attended last year's prompt engineering webinars. These are still there. So just go to tiny.cc SU prompts, tiny.cc/SU prompts, and you'll be able to see some of the prompts that we put in last year. We'll update it with some of the prompts we've used, and anyone can suggest. So if you feel like there's some pretty interesting prompting techniques that you're using in your classroom, please feel free to add them onto that document. It's a shared document accessible by Strathmore faculty. So anytime you're free, just go take a look. It has some of the prompts we used. And a final thought, I liked this from Dr. Jules White from the Vanderbilt Initiative on future of learning and generative AI. He's in Vanderbilt University. He says, Gen AI tools augment and amplify human creativity and reasoning. They form an exoskeleton of the mind that helps you find new ways of solving problems, of solving larger problems than before, or providing a new medium of artistic expression. We should seek to use these tools for augmented intelligence, not just not an artificial substitute for human reasoning. So when you use the tools, make sure you use them in a way that amplifies your own unique spark and doesn't diminish it. So thank you very much for attending the webinar. Do we have any question before we close out?
Yeah, thank you, David, for a really fascinating presentation.
Yes.
I had a question about the use of prompts is with OpenAI, and there's many other technologies out there.
Yes.
What's on X by IBM, and there may be even other homegrown LLMs.
Yes.
The content within OpenAI, because it's being sourced globally,
yes,
one could argue there's an element of bias because maybe Africa-centric, Asia-centric, other such content is not uploaded.
Yes.
Is there a unique opportunity for an institution like Strathmore, which is a consumer of OpenAI,
yes,
to even help enrich? Like how do we get to a world where we approach Microsoft OpenAI? There may be fascinating ideas, like you mentioned, Mary Omingo, that can help him add to this larger corpus of data.
Yeah.
I've really found today's presentation fascinating.
Thank you very much. Actually, you're right. Recently, Meta, formerly Facebook, released Llama and made it open source. So anyone can actually download Llama 3.1 or even 3.2 that I just saw came out. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? And put it up on a server and just train it on data that is relevant to Strathmore. So I think it's a challenge to anyone here who's at iLab or any of us who is a data scientist. We can do it because what you basically need to train is just a server and these models that are open sourced and available, so we can create our own customized versions. Unfortunately, I don't know if the companies usually allow people to come and tell them what to put. Like, for example, they usually make it a bit proprietary what goes into the training of their models. So for example, for Strathmore to approach OpenAI and tell them, this is what we can do. I know they usually partner with the bigger corporate organizations like the newspapers, the big ones, New York Times, Washington Post, etc. I don't know whether they partner with smaller African universities. So it's good that there are very capable models that are out that can be used to customize our very own, trained by Strathmore data, hosted by a Strathmore server, used as an internal tool by anyone who is on a Strathmore network. It's very possible. That's, I think, what is possible at the moment. Yeah, so
Thank
again,
you, David.
Yeah, sure. Welcome. These prompting techniques that we've used apply to any model. I've used ChatGPT because it's easiest, but any chatbot that you use. All right. Thank you all very much for attending, and I wish you a good Thursday. Bye.